don't know how many people are out there. My name's Mike Heppel. I'm the course leader for BTEC Popular Music at QE. And this is, as you probably guessed from the title, a BTEC course is a hands-on, quite practical-based course. So if you're doing this course, generally people tend to be either guitarist, drummer, bass player, a couple of piano players or singers. And what you sign up for is really an A-level size course. It's a BTEC sub-diploma at 6 units that you do over 2 years, just like an A-level. And it's the same size as an A-level. So you can still come to QE and do 2 of the courses alongside your BTEC. A small minority of people do 3 A-levels and a BTEC, but they tend to be in the minority, and it's usually because they've got to do like double maths or something like that. So although it's an A-level size, the way we work is totally different. We have 5 hours lessons a week, and in 4 hours of those lessons, you're going to be making music. You're going to be in a room. We have a big dance studio room that we use at the minute. And at the minute, we have classes of around about 12. So you might find yourself, there might be kind of 2 drummers, 2 bass players, 4, 5, 6 guitar players, 1, 2 piano players, and a couple of singers. And what we're doing is we're working in a practical way, almost as if it's like a studio session. Each week, in first year, we go through the different genres and styles of popular music. We go through the decades basically. We start in the 1950s where we're doing kind of rock and roll, blues type music. We go through the 60s, do some Beatles stuff, bit of reggae, some rock music. We're in the 80s, we start to kind of do some maybe R&B type music. And then as we get in the 90s, we're doing kind of indie styles. So that's our first kind of half term. And what we're doing is each week we might have a song that we're doing, a classic song from the decade. As you go, feel free to ask some questions. I've just had one pop up there. How much of the course focuses on soundtracks in media like cinema and TV? Only a small proportion. In the second year, we have 1 unit where we do some film-based music. But basically what we're doing, we're still playing live, but we're trying to play live to some screen images. So there's some scenes from classic movies that are on the screen. We're trying to create new music that kind of goes with what's on the screen. It's not like a kind of music tech course where you compose work and do it on GarageBand or Cubase or something. So there's not a lot of kind of overlap with media until second year, just our last year. I've had another question there. I play alto saxophone. Is that acceptable to play on this course? It is, and we've got an alto saxophone player on the course at the minute. What you need to be able to do, though, if you're a saxophone player, is you need to be able to kind of play a little bit kind of by ear and improvise. Because how it works is each class is totally different. We might have an idea of what song we're going to do, but the style of it might change depending on who's in that particular group. For instance, we might be, if we've got female singers, we might be in the key of C, for instance. You know, might be, I'll just hit the C chord then, okay? But the group that comes next might have male singers, and they might be in a low key, might be in the key of A, and therefore we don't have pre-written parts for people to kind of play. And I know a lot of saxophone players rely a little bit more on kind of reading music. So the idea would be, if you're going to do it as a saxophone player, you've got to be kind of fairly kind of confident doing some improvisation. I'll maybe put a couple of riffs on the board. I might be able to give you a little bit of kind of prepared stuff. But you've got to be able to kind of play a little bit by ear and go with the flow of things. You might hear a guitar player, might come up with a riff. And as a saxophone player, you'd have to think, right, well, he's in a key of C, so that's an A note on the alto floor, and play it. And kind of work out things a little bit by ear as well. If you're happy working in that style, rather than having kind of written parts out, then you can do the course as a saxophone player. So there's no problem with that. I'll keep kind of talking, but feel free, drop some questions in as you see fit. So the idea is that no matter where you are in your kind of development as a musician, the idea is the course will start to kind of push at the kind of boundaries of your comfort zone. Might be that you're a great rock guitar player, for instance, but then we're doing reggae, or we're doing kind of soul music or something, and then you have to play in a different style. Questionnaire can do this course and an A-level, definitely. You can do, generally most people at QE do 3 courses. This counts as one of your choices. So you could do this alongside A-level media studies, alongside A-level art, or even alongside A-level physics and maths if you want. A-level popular music is compared to GCSE music. I think if you're doing GCSE music, it will be you'll be relatively comfortable just working with music. I don't think in most schools though you have lessons where everyone's on their instruments in the room and you're working live together, which is what we do in kind of BTEC music. So the idea would be literally for the hour of the lesson, the drummer's playing there, bass player's playing over there, got a couple of guitar players and a singer, and we've had a little preparation where we've looked at how things are going to go on the board a little bit, some chord patterns, we've got some lyrics on the screen, but then literally I count it off and we play the music. Okay. How it's also kind of different, perhaps other A levels, is as you're doing that, we might video what's going on in the room. Okay. And then 10 minutes later, we do another take. We try to kind of polish it in some way. We might notice, right, first time around, when we go up the chorus, that wasn't quite right. We need to change things around. So we'll have another go at it. We'll video that. And then eventually all these videos go up on our college YouTube channel, and you upload the footage of yourself in rehearsals. And that becomes the kind of evidence that you use in your coursework to say, here I am working in the new style. Let's say it's the 1970s, working in reggae style. And here's me trying to play this song for the first time. He's the second take of it where I've worked on a new part. He's the evidence. When the camera zooms in on me, here I am doing, and you've got a kind of little riff. So you've got to be kind of confident on an instrument, basically. I've got a question there. Do we already have to know how to play an instrument, or can we learn well? You've pretty much got to be have some basic skills on an instrument to start the course. This is an A-level sort of standard, even though it's called BTEC, it's A-level standard. And that's why we don't have an entry qualification as such. Doesn't matter if you haven't done GCSE music, but you do have to have a kind of short 5-10 minute audition in the summer term, either on Bridging Week or when it's time for enrolment. And at that point, I just check you've got the kind of basic skills. You need to be able to play some basic chords on the guitar. You need to be able to play the drums in time. You need to be able to sing in tune. You need to know kind of some basic kind of knowledge so that when we start the course, you can hit the ground running. I've got a question there, which is a good one. Can you just sing like no instruments? Definitely. We've got people on the course now where their main job is just to be the singer. Bear in mind, if you're doing that, you're kind of the star of the show. You know, you're signing up to be the lead singer. You're going to be there at the front of the band with a microphone, and it's your job to be the lead singer. It's an advantage if you play an instrument as well. Even if you choose not to play the instrument in the recordings as we're playing, because you've got to kind of write about music as well in your coursework. And if you don't understand how kind of chords work and stuff like that, it just makes it slightly harder when you come to kind of write about music. So it's just an advantage if you can play a bit of an instrument if you're a singer as well. Someone's learned to play the bagpipes. I think that would be kind of an interesting one. You know, there's not a lot of pop music where the bagpipes feature, but at least you'd have some musicality. You know, you'd be kind of understanding how scales work, how notes work, how when you change chords, the melody above it changes. But a basic knowledge of kind of just some piano chords or some guitar chords would be useful for a singer. I've got a question there. How are we going to be assessed for our final exams? There's no final exams as such in BTEC. Okay, there's no written exams where you go into an exam hall and you sit there for 2 hours like in A-level. Okay, you get assessed. It's a steady coursework kind of assessment. Each unit, you've got some evidence you've got to produce to show that you've worked in a particular way. And once you've produced that evidence, it's in your coursework, you've done it, you move on. Okay, if you're a really good musician, you work really hard, it might be by the time we get into second year and we get to March or April, you've actually already got the evidence, you've already got your qualification pretty much. There's not a kind of final exam or anything. Okay, you've just got to have in these documents that we produce, Google documents, you've got to have links to YouTube performances, and you've got to have the little bits of analysis that go with it. Often it's basically like a diary where you're kind of saying, here's some evidence of me working in this style, here's what I think about it, this is what I'm trying to do. You're trying to explain what you're doing as well as giving the evidence of it. Put it in a document, you've done the job, tick the box. You don't have to have done GCSE music, that's definitely not a requirement. It might be a bit of an advantage, but it's not a requirement. If you've done BTEC music at school, again, it's an advantage, okay? The only thing you need to be able to do is be reasonably confident on one of our main instruments and be willing to join in and take part. because remember, this is a communal course. One of the great things about it is you're working really closely with other people. You'll get to know the people in your BTEC music class more than people in any other class. You'll be working closely with them every day. Sometimes you'll be in a little team of 4 or 5 people in a band, and you'll work with them for kind of a couple of weeks together. But all the time, you work and interact and relying on other people. You might see the bass player does something. It's like, oh, wow, that was really cool. It might inspire you to do something on the guitar. There might be a drummer who's in the hot seat on the main drum stool. He plays one way, and you might think, right, I'm going to try and do that. And then when it's your turn in the stool, you try and do that. But it's kind of, there's a nice kind of dynamic in lessons for that reason. Keep the questions coming if you want, and I'll just keep talking over the top of it. This course can be used like any other A-level in terms of preparing to go to university or something like that. It counts the same if you get a distinction in BTEC. Most of our students do get distinctions or star distinctions. That's worth 48 UCAS points, which is the same as an A at an A-level. Okay, I would say about half of my students go on to courses at university that are kind of related to music in some way. But not all. Some go off and do other kind of more academic courses or very kind of specialist courses in other ways, like art or media, things like that. Is there an option to write and perform our own songs? Good question. In the latter part of the first year, there's a unit where we will work kind of collectively, collaboratively with everyone else in your band on original type songs. There tend to be songs that are written in a certain style. So it might be that you've got to write a song that sounds a bit like, I don't know, a rock and roll song from the 50s, or something that sounds a bit like a Beatles song, or something that sounds like a R&B funk song, or a hip hop song. But there's chances to do that. Do you usually take any trips if it wasn't the current situation? We don't do a lot of trips. We have a couple of things where we tend to take, we've taken students out and have gone and performed at places. We usually every year have some students who go off to the kind of Head of Steam Museum, and we do a sort of recording there because it's like a 1950s kind of railway platform and it looks kind of cool. There may be opportunities for trips when you come where we could go and visit some kind of universities where they do popular music courses or opportunities. In the past, I've taken some students to kind of a gig at a theatre, but we haven't done anything in the last year or two, partly because of COVID. Keep the questions coming. We do a unit which is about the, excuse me, I'm going to sneeze. We do a unit which is about the history of pop music, where we listen to loads of examples of classic music through the decades, and you do a kind of mock magazine about the history of music, like an online magazine, where you use the YouTube links and photographs, and you write little kind of magazine articles about the different styles of music. There's a unit where we take cover songs, but we do them in a brand new style. So it might be you take a kind of an indie song and you do it in a hip hop style, or you take a mainstream kind of pop song and you do it in a kind of heavy rock style. Students seem to enjoy that one because it's kind of creative again. Most of the course does focus on creating performance songs as a band live. That's the main kind of ingredient of most of the units. Like I said, there's a couple of written kind of elements in the coursework, but where we analyse kind of music, we show our understanding. But it is a hands-on course where we're playing music, we're performing songs, and we're creating evidence. But the idea being, over 2 years, you might end up playing 50 different songs, and some of those might be in different styles. When we go into second year, there's an improvisation unit where we only have a rough idea of how the music's going to be. It might be just a chord pattern, like A minor to D, for instance, and we might just have a brief to do something generally in a kind of funky style. We don't know how that's going to turn out, and therefore that becomes a very creative unit. But most of the time we're playing music live in the room, recording it into camera, and then afterwards, maybe it's 1 hour a week, we're working on coursework where we kind of log what we've done, and we upload our videos, and we show evidence of what we've done in that particular week's work. We've got a few more minutes left. If we've got any more questions, throw them up on the board. If at any point you've got questions, our kind of publicity on the website, where we've got some course kind of links that you can go on, might answer your questions, or at any point you can drop an email to me at QE. It's mheppel@qeliz.ac.uk. You can just send it to the college as a general email inquiry, and I'll forward it to me. But hopefully I'll get a chance, perhaps in the summer term, there might be some sort of open event or a bridging event where you can come in and you can meet me face to face. If singing's the main instrument, but we play bits of other instruments, brilliant. That would be perfect. Yeah, that's certainly the case with singers. Often they play a little bit of guitar or a little bit of piano, but they want to concentrate on singing. That's totally fine. That sounds like I do. What else can I tell you about, perhaps? Are there competitive events between in-school or out-of-school bands? Yeah, there's a great thing where normally every year we have a thing called Battle of Bands, where we have a gig in our main hall space. We get professional sound engineer in, we have a big stage, and it becomes a kind of Battle of Bands. Every year there's usually about 8 bands. They take part, they get a little 20-minute slot. There's a couple hundred people in the room, and it's a nice kind of end of sort of Christmas term experience. Where we have a kind of a gig, and the winners get £200 worth of kind of gift vouchers. And sometimes we just have little kind of informal sort of gigs where it might be a lunchtime and people come in and watch what you've been up to. There's sections of popular music where we analyse a song, definitely all the time we're doing that. Even before we play a song live, we might kind of listen to the original version. I might put a couple of kind of points on the board of what to listen out for, what the ingredients are, what the chord patterns are, some of the technical terms that we might need to kind of learn as we go forward as musicians. And then sometimes I might have a kind of a Google document where there's a list of YouTubes, and you work your way through listening to them and trying to work out yourself what to listen out for. So that's a good question. Occasionally, we have things where on lunch times or after school, external members could come in if you're in a kind of band and you've got a friend who's not a QE, but not very often. Keep the questions coming. A few more minutes left. If you've got any questions, throw them in here. My instruments, I play guitar's my main instrument. I play piano, I play bass, I play keyboards, I play drums. So I work one-to-one with most of the people in the room, literally kind of trying to demonstrate techniques that you might want to consider. We also have another music teacher once a week, Steve McGarvey. He was a saxophone specialist and he runs choirs and things, so he's good at working with kind of singers, and he plays piano as well. So, and we're both kind of professional musicians now. We're on time. That's what we do outside of QE. I'm just a part-time teacher. I still work in bands. I still do kind of gigs when COVID allows for it. You definitely receive some vocal help every lesson. You'd be kind of on the microphone, taking it in turns to be a singer, and we'd be trying to kind of guide you. Often with singers, it's just a case of trying to find like the sweet spot of the voice, knowing what key to put a song in, knowing how to use the dynamics of your voice, and knowing kind of what you need to do to just kind of give the song a kind of personalised twist. Sometimes we're not trying to copy other famous singers and how they sing. We're trying to use your voice and your individual personality to get the kind of best performance out of you. What else? If there's no more questions for the last 2 minutes, I've got next to me, I've got some kind of records that I just thought I'd share with you. Examples of my taste. I've got a Beatles record. We do a unit on the Beatles. We have the Jam sound effects classic album you might like.